Well, well, well. It seems to be 1 o'clock. It seems to be time to start. And you're very, very warmly welcome. I'm actually shaking. It's so cold in this room today. When the wind blows from the northeast, then this house essentially becomes an open to the sky residence, and the old wooden windows just let the cold air pour in. So I hope you're. I've got a blanket as well. I hope you're doing all right, and you're a bit warmer than that. But it's been, I suppose, a bit exciting and exhilarating to have a bit of proper winter weather. There's still snow on the roofs, on the ground, the pavements out there, and it is winter. But the sun has come out, and I'm just beginning to feel as if spring will come. I expect, like me, you have had variable moods lately, and I think it's important to take pleasure in the small things that can come along. And with that end today, I've got various things to share with you, really lovely stuff. And I will open the Zoom room at the end. Don't click the link now, but it's in the description, which you can see under the word donations at the side. It says see more, and then there are all sorts of links, which I'm going to introduce you to. And at the bottom, I've put the Zoom link. And I've got some lovely recommendations. I thought we could just get into the room together and watch a little bit of Dowland done in a sort of living room context by a young group from Vienna. And also fantastic performance by Fretwork and of some Schütz, which is a joy, even though it's a very sad piece of music. Absolutely amazing. So in trying to take pleasure in the small things, actually, I've ended up thinking about moments like this. This is when I was in Denmark, I think a couple of years ago, and I was doing a workshop, which I was really enjoying. It was sort of lecture, really. And these videos are taken one each side of a bridge, which was over a completely clear, crystal clear stream. And what I enjoyed about it was the light, the clearness of the water, but above all, that waving grass. I don't know the word for it, but the waving grass that subsisted inside the current. And I thought about all the vicissitudes of life. I think at that time I was having certain stresses, and I tried to imagine just allowing the current of life to wash over and to go with the flow, but to be rooted somewhere, rooted and free. And actually it led me to thinking about my hero Thomas Tallis, who surely had the currents change directions over him several times, but remained nevertheless rooted in the mud and allowed the vicissitudes of life to wash across him. I've been thinking about him quite a lot lately because I've been going in the cathedral, which is, a 15-minute walk away, and you can't walk all the way round, but you can get in to some extent. And I've been thinking about how sad it is that there's almost nobody there, but also that building has withstood the vicissitudes of so many different times in English history. And there it is. There's a set of pictures I've got where I walked around a couple of weeks ago and there was nobody in sight. And I thought about Tallis coming there after the abbey was pulled down across the way. It's just over the ring road, St Augustine's, and what he would have seen, the sight of the shrine of Becket strafed clean and all the riches wheeled away to London, the bones of Becket thrown ground, dispersed, and what Tallis would have thought, and all these people who've passed there before. And I often feel the same about music, actually. I often feel that when we inhabit and breathe life back into pieces of music, or put muscle back into the sound, we revivify that utterance from the past and bring it into the present, which is our greatest gift to musicians, isn't it? Because unlike a stonemason, where that cathedral stays persistently there for as long as it's going to stand, it's just there, present, physically, a reality. Music from the past needs us to revivify it with our breath, but also to hear it afresh and to experience it inside our heads. One of the things I think I'm really missing at the moment is the privilege of getting inside people's heads. I was thinking about the way that really attentive audiences listen, and really attentive audiences that pay attention to what you're doing. The Renaissance singers gets people like this. and they sit often with their eyes completely closed and their bodies in a sort of submission to the music, slightly folded forward, and allowing the whole thing to wash. And in a sense, this is a massive contradiction to some of the things I've said in previous talks about the raggedness of musical acts, the way in which all the sounds and all the surroundings, the physical and oral surroundings of a piece of music, interact with that work of art. In a sense, what people are doing when they listen like that is focusing entirely upon the substance of the music and removing everything extraneous. And that's, of course, what CDs do. They put a probe through to the very heart of what the music is and just give you that. But there is such a privilege, isn't there, as a musician, in being allowed into people's heads when they have their eyes closed. They're beyond thought. They're vulnerable to what you might express, to where you might take them and what emotions you might lead them to feel. And that is a privilege to be handled with extreme delicacy, I think. And I'm missing that liveness and that sense of connection, which paradoxically comes through the absence of presence, as it were. People go inside and go past thought and let the ineffable stream of music just transport them to wherever. What a wonderful thing to be allowed to do for another human being. Now, on the lighter side, I've been playing about a little bit this week with this pink trombone site. Let me just check I'm opening the correct window here. I want to show you this. So this is very amusing little site, which, if you're missing your voice being kept in shape, I don't know how much singing you're doing at home, whether you're able to do online things, you can have a play with this. On the right, we have the face. So we've got the nose and the fricative. So this is the lips and the teeth and the tongue. And there's the tongue is conceptualized in the middle here with this control. And then we go down the throat off to the left. I'm just going to turn this sound on and you'll see you can have a little play with your pink trombone website. It makes me laugh every time. So you can make it more pleasant. Or you can move. So I think a very useful thing, I'm just going to stop it there. A very useful thing if you're a singing teacher and you want to discuss how people make different sounds with their tongue. You see, I mean, that's pretty unbearable after a few seconds, but I just wanted to show you. So that's pink trombone and it's in the link. And as you see, it makes me laugh like a drain. But as with a toddler, the amusement soon evaporates and turns to irritation. So far as and of course, by the way, have you ever played with the Google one, which is a kind of blob opera? That's in the link as well, but I won't show you that today. But that's also very amusing. That has an almost Eastern folk feeling once you get the thing going, because it's like a drone with voices ululating as blobs, animated blobs on the screen. Have a play; it's fun. So this idea, I suppose, of being inside someone's head, it seems to me that what appeals to me partly in running workshops or in contemplating music in the way of working is to pull down these pyramidal structures of authority and actually to be on the level in the creative moment with people. And I think I was brought up partly, not very devoutly for myself, but partly with silence, because I was taken to Quaker meeting probably twice a month. And in a Quaker meeting, you've got the roughly round shape. You've got a great lack of icons and symbols to look at, and you're left really on the resources of prayer and the inwardness of the mind. And then this was brilliantly alternated with some very high church campery with lots of music and bells in a high church local parish. So I got the music, I got a bit of chant going into my childish brain, but I also got this sense that it was very important to keep very still. And what came along, unfortunately, with Quakerism, I suppose, is this feeling that ostentation is wrong, and actually that music is quite suspect because its very sensuality can draw you away from your purpose, which in the case of being at Quaker meeting is to pray and think about your own soul and to speak to God. And so I think in me there is still this tension actually between music as a sort of proud product which is shown and given, and music which is a sort of sense of service and inwardness, This isn't going to be very well expressed, I think. And then this tension with delighting in the ornateness, the theatre of beautiful buildings, stained glass, and imagery and ceremony, actually. But I think that's a very useful thing if you're going to do workshops which are about polyphony, because in a polyphonic setting, the music itself lends itself to a very flat structure in terms of how you run the thing and the ways in which people can interact within the texture and within the workshop or within a rehearsal. Because, of course, in an orchestra where it's more like a battalion with leaders at the front and then a man, or usually a man, or a maestro at the front, in a workshop context, it's much easier for anyone in the circle to speak out. And I think for me, this is why polyphony is so wonderful to deal with, such a wonderful substance, actually, because it's democratic. I mean, sure, everyone has to be facing the same way, but every part of that texture is necessary and interreliant. And what greater metaphor is there really for community and tolerance, listening and responding and understanding with and releasing social and creative energy into music? And I find, particularly when I'm conducting someone like Victoria, who gives singers really great lines, but also very clear parameters of harmony and meter to work within. What happens to singers who are perhaps introverted or cautious about contributing is that they feel a sense of empowerment and agency within the texture while feeling sheltered by the whole. And I've talked several times about the secondarily subversive nature of music, and I'm absolutely convinced that this medium provides a metaphorical space in which people are forced to confront each other and to, in the most beautiful way, and to harmonise with each other where otherwise there might be strain and dissonance, because it only works within the warp and weft of giving and leading. And it's that gallantry of giving way and listening and responding, combined with the bravery of leading and coming in and asserting and shining in the texture. So in a way, it's profoundly anti-ego music. It's in a way not very commercial. And I think for me as a conductor, the better the workshop goes, the more you get out of the way of that process. So of course the situation can malfunction. Of course you may never get to that point where everyone's actually in collaboration and in cooperation and in harmony. But if you have a weekend or a week together, perhaps some alchemy will happen even between a group which has frictions and different levels of attention and talent. It's not generally the talent that gets in the way, it's the energies that people bring into the room that block them from making the contribution that they can offer. So it's often a matter of their own ego or insecurity, or their neediness to be recognised, or their fear of being criticised, all the frustrations and tirednesses and irritations that of life that come. I do think sometimes people arrive at such situations without doing any preparation, warming their voice or looking at the music, and then they expect it all to work because they have a magical idea of what the music will be like for them. And of course, no conductor can cure that. That would be like me entering a 5k run but doing no running at all in the interim and eating lots of pies, and then being rather surprised that the 5k run is an unmitigated nightmare and I end up vomiting in a hedge halfway round. So, you know, I think there are things that singers need to do in order to get there, but thinking about the leadership of that, the idea of this level circular space in which you essentially are an enabler and a freer of energy, and not someone who has to overly bully or direct. I think in this case, leadership in polyphony is a matter of getting out the way once the group is humming. So it's showing expertise and tolerance and making a safe envelope in which people can go wrong, in which they feel supported to let their voice out into the space. Pulling down barriers that stop them entering fully into the music is more important actually than bullying them into doing what you want, because it is going to be those people in the room in that moment. So it's not going to be the ideal thing in your head, it's going to be what's happening now. And letting go as a conductor is really hard because one is so frightened of looking stupid as you lose control, because it feels as if the end result depends so much on you. But of course it doesn't. That's the wrong motivation. The motivation should be about the music. And if you're focused on releasing people's energy to allow them to do their best in the music, then actually all you've needed to do is align them like a magnet into the activity. And in losing themselves in that activity, I think people often find themselves. That's really pat, isn't it? I shouldn't say things like that. I've just been thinking, though, about the way that people in the 20th century, later 20th century, really got hold of this idea of pulling down the canon of great works, of literature, of art, of music, and started to say that value and meaning inhered in the viewer, the listener, the person regarding the artwork, the person experiencing it, and that there were a limitless number of meanings. And I'm not as certain about that as I might have been in the past, because I'm not sure we know who we are moment to moment. I'm not sure that we are the same as our minds. I think our minds often create restlessness and difficulties for us, and they're not the same as our self. And therefore, putting so much weight on the idea that we construct meaning through our hearing and looking and reading in the moment maybe is rather dangerous if we don't know ourselves who we are from moment to moment. So I'm wondering about that. I'm wondering whether the meaning perhaps does inhere in the text or in the symbols a little bit more than we like to say. And also that endless nervous chatter of the mind, which I don't know about you, but I'm experiencing more at the moment because of relative isolation and the lack of a variety of social and creative moments in life. Actually, that can be very loud and very dissonant and not very good for you, because the mind throws up all sorts of things for your consideration, which perhaps you didn't want to think about right now, and it gnaws away at stuff. Well, one of the reasons music and other creative acts, pottery, needlework, sport, one of the reasons these things are so wonderful is that they occupy an awful lot of bandwidth. And the bandwidth means that the chatter, the internal chatter, the monologue, is taken out and replaced with a sense of being completely consumed by the activity. That's why one of the greatest compliments you could give me at the end of a rehearsal is to say, I can't believe, how did the hour fly by? How is it Wednesday? I thought we've only just started. We need to sleep. So that was a very special weekend with stimulants. So I think losing yourself into it is the goal, which actually means a sort of oblivion and total absorption. That's what we've talked about a lot with the idea of flow. One of the greatest things for me, I think, was when I had my busy job at the university. I used to love being in rehearsal because nobody could get me in a meeting. No one could expect me to answer the phone or write an email. And what I was there to do was to be in the analog present, not plugged into any, not with my attention diffused, but completely focused on enabling that thing to happen. And that's where actually you find yourself, I think. That's where people are surprised. That's why when people listen with their eyes shut to your live performance, they make themselves vulnerable to be taken somewhere they didn't know they were going to feel, and you can surprise them into emotion. And sometimes that's very beautiful. Sometimes, of course, they've signed up for it. They've come to a concert which is of lamentations and it's Holy Week or something, and they're expecting, they've brought the Kleenex. But other times, I think one's eyes can prickle, or one's skin can be suddenly just goose pimply with the sudden beauty or crystallization of a thought or a feeling. And I think that is what it's for, is to take yourself into an unknown place, to quiet the mind and to emerge in some forest glade and not know how you got there, and to be utterly delighted. And that's surely the privilege of being a musician. And the thing for the conductor to allow that to happen is not to predetermine how they want to get there or what they want it to be. And that is so difficult to learn because one has so many competing pressures in a rehearsal, particularly towards a performance, that actually you try so hard to control. And I've certainly struggled to learn this because I don't want to feel stupid. I don't want to feel exposed, and I do get tired and irritated, and all of that gets in the way. But I think almost everybody watching will have had these moments when they are playing or singing or listening of transcendental pleasure where unexpectedly you are brought to a different emotional state. And the truth is, that's the catnip, which brings us back to doing music. We love the flapjacks and the chit chat and the cups of tea and the getting together and the beer afterwards. But the truth is, and we might not want to talk about it too much, is that like a moth drawn to a very beautiful and not at all artificial flower, the moths, I don't know if let's say a moth to a flame. I haven't got a flame to demonstrate, but a moth to a flame, the very thing we want to get hold of actually is elusive. It's very difficult. So the flame's better because you can't get hold of it. But it keeps us coming back. And one of the things I always thought about studying music, people said to me, oh, doesn't it destroy it? Now you know more about it and you're analysing it. No, the more you go into it, the more you do it, the more absorbing and exciting it becomes. And the more you want to recapture the 6 or 7 times in your life when you felt completely transparent and lost in the music. And that's where you want to be. And there's no way of manufacturing it. All you can do is learn how to put the circumstances in place to allow people to do it. And the best way to do it is not to block anyone in the room with ego. And therefore, the appeal for me remains of this rather flat primus inter pares kind of structure. And the authority of leadership comes from modelling what you want and the knowledge and preparation that you've put into the thing, not in the assertion of power and control over the people in the room, because to do that is to close down those possibilities of connection and those possibilities where people release themselves and feel sufficiently confident to be vulnerable in the space with relative strangers and to release their voice and release their creativity. So there are some, goodness me, rambly thoughts. But what I'm going to do now is round up the Facebook part and invite you to click on the link which you will find under the description in the video. I'm going to play 2 videos in this extra zoomy bit. One is this wonderful version of Can She Excuse My Wrongs by Dowland, and the other is a simply amazing countertenor duet by Schütz. So come and join me. And the last thing I want to say is check out the Tom Service podcast, the Radio 3 programme. It's called The Listening Service. He's come back with a new series, and this week's was called Musical Signatures, and it's ever so good. And it includes lots of classical music, but he starts with ABBA, and I think a wide range of reference and a hugely informed person to listen to. And the other thing I wanted to say was I really enjoyed listening to the Trouvere medieval minstrel live concert. I started to follow them on Facebook. The link is also there. I'll see a few of you in a moment, but otherwise I'm stopping streaming. Thank you so much for joining me, and thank you for all your support and kindness, the donations, the engagement. It is immensely cheering to know there are other human beings who really care about this stuff out there. Bye-bye to Facebook. Join me in Zoom if you can. Hello. 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 Hi. Wow, they're pouring in. Hi. As ever, I'm simply amazed that there are real people sitting there. And slightly embarrassed. I'll just let a few more people come in, and then I just want to play these 2 beautiful pieces. Hello. All right. I don't know whether people can locate these links. Facebook makes everything difficult, doesn't it? It's never obvious where the thing is, where the stream is. Oh, wow. Here we go. Matthew, you also look cold today. You've got your zip right up to your chin.
Really cold, really cold.
Yeah.
I need a wig, that's the problem.
You do. And I have a photograph of you in one, which I will not display now.
Yes, it's post-watershed, that is, David.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, Matthew does his daily lockdown singers. And this morning, we had the pleasure of Cher joining us. But she just looked like she needed a little bit of Electro. Bit of a shave. Yeah. Brilliant. I'll
Just
just
a little bit, you know.
couple more, and then I'm going to mute you impudently. It's lovely to see you all. Lots of friends there. Hello. So, I'll mute you if that's all right, and then we'll just say hello at the end. So, Matthew, I could make you an admin. Is that allowed? Then you could just let any naughty late people in. Is that all right?
I believe so.
There we are. And now I'm going to mute all. So, try not to lean on the space bar or suddenly intervene. So thank you for coming into the back room of the meeting. The two things I wanted to show you. Firstly, I hope you enjoyed the pink trombone. That really made me laugh. That probably lost me half the listeners at a time. The first thing I want to show you is this Can She Excuse My Wrongs, which some of you may have seen. This went round on Facebook. I particularly want to show you this middle bit first. So these divisions on the recorder, if you think the recorder is a kind of primary school, of course you don't, you're people who know about music, but my goodness, this player, who I imagine is Sheng Fang Chu, listed there. Let's hear her divisions on Dowland. Isn't that fantastic? Okay, so I put the link, and I hope you'll watch it after. Perhaps give them a like on YouTube and follow their channel, because what I really like, though, I'm puzzled by some of the objects that we see along the way. There's this item with the finger that's alarmingly sticking up behind the vase, and also this seems to be some kind of Saint Sebastian box which contains some fairy lights. But I think, so you can watch this multiple times and worry about the apartment in Vienna. But that is wonderful musicianship. It's very dry. Now, Matthew, we've got 8 people in the waiting room. I'm just going to admit them all. There we are. I shouldn't make sudden response. Don't tell them about the Saint Sebastian box and the finger thing. Right? That's just between us. Okay. Welcome. So that's one recommendation. The other is a link that Patrick Craig shared, which seems to be a private unlisted link from Fretwork, but I don't imagine we're breaking any embargoes because they put it on their channel. It's just not kind of out there yet. And this is a setting of Rachel's lament for her children, and it's sung by, as you see, Iestyn, Davies and Hugh Cutting. The translation of this, I believe, is out on the hills or on the hills a cry is heard, lamentation, weeping and howling. Rachel weeps for her children, and she would not be comforted since they were no more. So I'm afraid we're ending on a real sad one, but this is sublime. I mean, I've put in the Spotify list the old greatest recording of this, but I think this timbre is so well matched. And again, it's that thing of seeing people in, t-shirts and jeans knocking out completely beautiful performances of early music. So this transported me a couple of days ago, and I intend to run it. So it's about 5 minutes.
Schleim wird
That's quite something, isn't it? I feel I will be buying that disc because it's such a beautiful, focused, as Matt Simpkins says, it's such a focused, tight, expressive performance. I was just thinking, as ever, you get that, is it called esprit d'escalier, where you think of the thing you were going to say in the main talk? I suppose what I was going to say, and it really reoccurred to me watching these two professional singers doing such a fine job that you can barely imagine being bettered, is that what we do in workshops isn't the same activity. So I think there are several ways in which sacred music exists now. One is it's being used for its original purpose in a ritual, in the architecture and the liturgy it's designed for, and that is still available, but isn't, for the most part, for the main population, the way it's consumed. It's now consumed more as an aesthetic product. But then, which is a form of objective contemplation and can be either spiritual or just beautiful. And then finally, there is what happens in a workshop, which is that the music then becomes a sort of vehicle for us to encounter each other, to develop a skill. It's a different activity. It's a process of us not observing, not consuming, but doing. And it's the doing that interests me. It's the fact that it's a process and not a product at that point. And therefore, it's in the doing. And that's why I'm always very anti the pressure of a concert at the end of a week of workshops, because what matters is the transactions and the harmony that is achieved between us within the process of making. And that's what should consume us. And of course, that's not the original purpose that the composer had in mind, but it becomes a beautiful medium for gathering up our humanity together and, working out how to get along. It's a great metaphor, as I said, I think, for the rest of life. Even if you hate the guts of the person next to you, for those few minutes, you're in the music together and it's totally harmonious. I think I should stop there, So I'm very happy to unmute, or you may have done it yourself. What's it say? Allow participants to unmute. Yes, you may. And then we'll say goodbye because my lunch is uncooked. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming, though.
That was lovely.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.
To see you smiling.
Lovely.
It really means a lot to see you.
David.
Thanks, David.
I've got my
Keep well,
banana.
everybody.
I thought it was time to show something healthier than a Kit Kat. Yeah.
Yes, we have no
Joy.
bananas.
Hello, Di.
Lovely.
Hi, Jen. How you doing?
Hello, Di.
Cheers, everybody.
Bye.
I'll close the meeting now.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Bye-bye.